Hey, Pack. This is JT with with Pack Baseball and Softball Academy, and I'm here with Coach Matt Barry, and he's going to talk to us today about strength and conditioning. So, welcome to our podcast. And if you're seeing this live in the community, you can reach out to directly to Matt. He is involved in the community and will help you out. And we'll talk about a little bit about what he does, his background, and his experience, and what he's seeing out there in the baseball and softball community.
Good, good.
Go for it, Matt.
All
Let's
right.
let's hear.
I've been coaching, I've been in the S&C community for 25 and over 25 years. I started, I played all sports growing up. I played, I was a four sport letterman in high school. I ended up playing water polo first in college, and then I played baseball second. I played them both, obviously, in high school. And my college experience really started when I started playing baseball because I learned there was a lot of maturing that I had to do that I was not helped with. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody helping me along the way. Um, and after that, after I graduated, I got my degree. I really wanted to be a teacher, but I decided that at that time for my family, and I had a young family at that time, and that I couldn't quite make that jump. I needed more money, so I ended up being my degree was in kinesiology, but I ended up being a project manager for 18 years, all along training, helping athletes along the way at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where I got my degree at, and I moved to Milton, Georgia in 2011 and had opportunity to pursue my degree work. Um, and I've been doing it 100% since then. And that's where I am today. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty much quick, it's quickly wrapped up. We can dive deeper into any one of those parts um, about why and the whys and who's and all that stuff, but that's about it.
Yeah, so you're just to for reference, you're a strength and conditioning coach now. And
Correct.
you said something interesting I'd like to talk about in your um, introduction. Number one, you were a four sport at Letterman,
Yes.
if I understood that correctly, in high school. And one of those sports was water polo.
Correct, correct. I grew up in San Diego. Water polo is very big in the Southwest. I tell this to people all the time, especially here, that every high school has their own pool, and it's outdoors. And you have your, part of your curriculum as a freshman in high school, and everybody has to learn how to swim. Or if you don't know how to, if you know how to swim, then you get to have fun. But every semester. There's a swimming requirement. And so that's a little bit different than, back a little bit further out east than that.
Yeah, I'm in the heart of Colorado, and I have no idea. I think I've seen water polo in the Olympics.
Yes, yes, yes. No, it's very basic. I mean, I started in the eighth grade. Um, Wanted to play football, but that's all my friends played. But, my mom decided that that wasn't my route that I was allowed to take. And so the rest of my friends played water polo. So that's what I did.
Very cool. And then, as a strength and conditioning coach, it seems like there's a lot of movements in water polo that would translate to pitching and throwing and some of those things. Can you talk a little bit like that, or are they totally different?
No, they're actually very similar. Actually, I mean, the ball's bigger, so it creates different mechanics, but the throwing motion is the same. It's an overhead throwing sport. They're doing and strength and conditioning, we classify overhead throwers. So shoulder mechanics and all of that is required. Um, there's a physical component, there's a cardiovascular component that goes to that, and they're all very, very intense. People don't know don't know about water polo. The entire time you're out there, you're having to keep yourself afloat. So you're never not moving. You're always you're treading water, or they call it an egg beater kick, but you're always treading water the entire time you're playing. So if you play a whole game, I mean, I wish I had the technology that we have today because I would love to know how far I would swim or, the energy that would be exerted, during those games because It's very, very high demand.
Yeah, and I imagine when you were doing that, was that sort of a catalyst to what you're doing now? Because I feel like you probably had to eat a lot. You had to eat pretty healthy to stay active in four different sports in high school. And now a lot of times it's very specific focus. Like parents get this idea that their kids are going to be the next, Soto or the next, uh,
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
whoever.
Yeah, unfortunately, one of the lessons that I can reflect on and try to push onto my clients now is that part of it because I know I did not eat well. Um, who knows, what impact that would have had on my, I was I played at a high level back then, but who knows what more I could have produced on a better nutritional diet. I remember I drank a lot of milk, had a lot of bananas, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. There was a lot of bad food habits. And one of the lessons that I try to teach parents today is, you know, when males and females, but males especially because that's who I deal with, like hormones are playing a big role in their development. And eating food is really hard for people with a lot of hormones, being developed at that time. And so, a lot of complaints, most of the complaints are my son or my daughter does not eat or want to eat. And I get that. There's a reason for that. So there's a lot of debate going on, do you get them to eat whatever, or do you just, it has to be, in the pyramid or, part of a purely nutritional diet. And I don't, I'm on the opinion of you just got to get them to eat, calories. They got to get as many calories as they can because 9 times out of 10, they're not getting enough anyways. And so we can sift through that. We can, get better at eating as they get older. But as far as getting them to eat anything is really, really hard through going through that time.
Yeah, and so this is a big issue. Like when I was growing up, I had no idea about nutrition. I came from a family of nine, and we ate what mom put out, period.
Sure.
If you
Yeah.
didn't do that, you didn't eat.
Yeah.
And it was I don't know, it was always spaghetti. Very seldom was it rice. Tons of milk, tons of
Hmm.
cheese, tons
Yep.
of
Yep.
those things. Uh, and I didn't receive any guidance in high school. They just said work
No.
hard, do whatever. And then I went to college, and my freshman year of college playing ball, they said you need to put on some weight. And I actually had somebody talk to me, the strength and conditioning coach and the trainers, and they said, "Well, what are you doing now?" And I said, I'm taking in about 2,400 calories a day, and I'm running 8 miles, and I'm doing this and this and this and this." And they're like, "Well, that's why you're so skinny."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, the reason you don't have any weight on you, and coach was wanting me to put on weight since I was a catcher, is this and this and this. Well, when you have somebody coming into your facility, like they're saying, a lot of times, is this a 14-year-old? Is this a 12-year-old? Is this a 16-year-old? Where do they come to you and start saying, okay, this is something that I think I can do, and I want to commit to this. How do I put on weight, or how do I train to be better at catching? Right?
Sure.
I am a catcher.
Sure. And um, with years of experience, right? And so with a lot of trial and error on how can you get a middle schooler, which is a 12-year-old, to eat more, right? First of all, at 12 years old, it's hard for anybody really to say, you know what, I'm going all in. I'm going to go pro, or I want to go, I want to play at the next level. I want to play in college. And so, you don't want to shove it down their throat. In my opinion, you don't want to shove it down their throat that, in order to achieve this goal, you have to, you've got to get protein, carbs, fat, and this is the percentages, and this is the amount of calories every single day. And, every once in a while you get a kid that's willing to do that, and they do. And, of course, there's obviously you see the results from that, but more than not. I mean, they're just wanting to have fun, and I tell people all the time, I'm looking across my neighborhood right now because I have one of my clients is there and, he likes pizza. So, you know what? If we need more calories, I'm telling him, hey, have three more slices. I'm trying to get him to eat, in order to put on weight, right? He has big goals. He's in high school and, um, he's not going to put on weight. I mean, he will put on weight naturally because of hormones, but it's not going to be in the increments that he needs to be seen, at a Division I level or, at the collegiate level. And so getting them to eat more just of anything that they're interested in, you know what I mean? If they like, we have Chick-fil-A here, and I am not a fan of Chick-fil-A. Don't, I'm not telling anybody that's not a suggestion on a diet plan by any means, but if that's what they're eating, I can't control that outside of my environment. So, if you have a Chick-fil-A Happy Meal or whatever, have two. If that's what you like, let's just try and get the calories up there, and then we can start refining, into a better area because you'll see the results, creating a relationship and getting them to trust me and say, hey, look, if you do this, then you'll get the result and they get a result. They're going to listen to me when I say, hey, let's try something different besides Chick-fil-A. And so getting them to do that and getting that trust, that bond is very important before I can just throw down a diet plan down their throats. And before I even go any further than that, like I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I have 25 years more of experience, diet plans and such, but I'm not a nutritionist. I am not a dietitian. So I can give recommendations. I know I can give general plans, but I'm not going to give them food by food, calorie by calorie, stuff to do because I like to stay within my wheelhouse. I wouldn't tell somebody how to interpret an orthopedic MRI, but if you know what I mean. So I give them general, it's not common sense, but general like directions on how to navigate their way through nutrition.
Very cool. Yeah, that's definitely a big issue at Pac Baseball and Softball Academy. But what I notice is that when we started doing our goal-driven training, where we start and we bring the new kids in and we say, okay, what are your goals? And if they're very small goals, we try to encourage those to get bigger, and then we work our way down to the
Sure.
daily goal, right?
Right. Yep.
And when we look at it, and what I found is that when we break those goals down and we get to it and say, well, you want to hit home runs and you want to do this and you want to do that. Well, some of that involves putting weight on, strength and
Absolutely.
conditioning, getting
Hmm.
faster. You want to steal bases, speed and agility, all of these things. So then we take those goals and we start to break them down into your daily habits and we say, okay, all right, Jeff, you need to eat.
Yeah, sure.
You need to eat and you need to see our strength and conditioning coach and you need to develop a plan that's going to work for you. But you gotta commit to these things. And I have found that if we do the goal thing first, it becomes an easier conversation for those. But I wanted to ask you, as the specialist here, what are your thoughts on that process?
So, I mean, I agree with all of those things. That process is very similar to my approach when I have those conversations because I do have that conversation with a new client. What are their goals, right? Why do you want to see me? Um, and I try not to have the parent in the conversation. I really try not to train kids under 11 years old. 12 is usually my starting point because I feel like, they know more about what they want at 12 than anywhere else is going forward. And when we have and discuss what their goals are, I also ask them, if they know how to achieve those goals, what have they heard? Social media, kids have phones at 12 years old. I want to hear everything. I want to know what's going on in their brain because they have an idea. If they're goal driven, they already have an idea of what they need to do. And so that is always, always a part of my conversation. The other part of the conversation is I need to know all the whys. And what I mean by that is why are we doing this? Why do I need to eat this much? Why? And kids, if you really get kids to talk, most of their most of the conversation is a question. And the more questions I can get, the better relationship we're going to have because the more I can answer. Um, I never ever tell a kid that I know all the answers because I most definitely do not. But when you create that type of conversation, then the goals, especially their goals, start to come out more. And maybe, ultimately I've had conversations where the kid doesn't even want to play baseball. It's their parents' idea, and so they're just doing it for them. That doesn't happen too often, but it all happens with a conversation. And you're right, all those things are important. My process is a little bit different about the goals. I kind of like let it just grow organically, a part of the conversation. Sometimes, they don't even want to play a sport. Sometimes they just come in and they want to work out and they just want somebody to teach them how to work out because that's what everybody at school is doing. But they just happen to play sport too. And then, that can morph into a lot of different directions. I've had guys go to college just on that premise alone. They have no goals. They just want to do something that everyone else is doing. So there's a lot of different ways that can go, but I definitely agree with you about those goals and that plan. I agree with that 100%.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that, coach. And then one of the things that we notice is when we're training and we start training, and I'm, of course, specifically talking about baseball and softball
Hmm.
training
Hmm.
and not necessarily about strength and conditioning, but I want to see how you relate to that. So if we're able to get in there and get quick wins, we start to build that trust faster, and then we can
Sure.
start to do more and more things. What
Absolutely.
what are some of the ways that you would incorporate that idea of training into strength and conditioning?
Well, one of those quick wins is the why. Like I encourage, like I want questions, 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 questions. And being able to build a conversation right off the bat is one of my quick wins, honestly. The other quick win is um, maybe so I do a shoulder evaluation for my baseball players, and so there's a process that I take, and we go through mobility, hyperflexibility, and we go through things like that as far as to evaluate where they are as far as their shoulder health, and I can help point out things right away. Some kids are there's it's all over the place as far as where they're at in their shoulder health. Unfortunately, I've had kids who can't even, raise their arm over their head. And so that is a quick win to me. It sounds negative, but it's really not because that's something that we can have a conversation about. Like I said, it all comes down to having a conversation and winning that conversation, not winning, but we're both winning by having that conversation. Um, and that's that I don't see any other quick win other than that, especially within the first week or two that I'm talking to or training a client, especially that young.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because when I talk to strength and conditioning coaches, is specifically the one at our facility, Tony, he was getting frustrated at the very beginning because he's like, I can't get them to engage into believe in the process because it takes too long for those wins. And one of the things that we talked about was communication builds trust.
Absolutely.
And it's exactly what you just said. If you get them talking about themselves and you listen and you give feedback, you now have this trust where they're like, okay, this is, even if they don't know it consciously, that they're trusting you and moving forward, they'll stay locked in on the program a
Sure.
lot
Yeah.
better and
Absolutely.
follow your guidelines more closely if you have that communication, which builds that trust.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have kids that come in and they're mute for maybe 2 or 3 sessions, right? They are feeling me out. They are looking at me. They are watching me. And so one of the things that I do, I'm 52 years old, is I try to stay in tune with maybe what a 12-year-old is all about. You know, I flip through things and I look at social media and I try to see, what's the hottest game right now, video game. Um, I have to stay abreast of, the top players in baseball and a lot of different sports because of all of the clients that I have that play different sports. But those are all things that I can start talking about. How was your day at school today? Do you have PE? What did you do in PE today? And man, just asking those questions starts usually there have been times where it opens up the floodgates, man. Sometimes the kids start talking and they just don't stop. And this is I don't even have to say anything after that. And my evaluations are more organic than anything else because I just want to look at them and see how they move. How do they feel when they move? And are they in pain? A lot of kids at 12 years old are going through growing pains. Knees hurt, hips hurt, elbows hurt. Even though they play baseball, their elbows might hurt anyways. Their shoulders might be bothering them just because they're growing. Those are all things that kids are going through at any 12-year-old is going through. And so that's what I talk about too. Hey, how do you feel today? What did you wake up? Did you have a good night's rest? Conversations that seem like maybe it's just for parents, but those are conversations that all kids like to talk about, especially at that age. And, they get shy. Like I said, I might go 2 or 3 sessions without a word being said, and that's okay for me. But as long as you can tell that they're not in pain or, they're not having a horrible time, I think it's all positive.
I love that. I love that. And you brought up being in tune with the kids, and I want that kind of brings me to the t TikTok question because there's all
Sure.
these TikTok trends that are constantly coming out. And I have these kids coming in now, specifically, again, this is me talking about baseball training and all this stuff. And all
Yes.
these guys come out with these TikTok videos and they say, oh, do this, do this. And it's the latest thing. So they come in and they show it to me and they're like, can we do this, coach? And I'm like, no, we're working on this. And it's not that this is a bad thing, but I always like to explain to them, okay, so what they're showing you here is a really cool advanced drill based on this, and it looks like it improves this, but I don't know enough about it to say, yes, this is what you need to be doing.
Correct.
But what I
Correct.
will tell you, if you do this, you'll get what you want. And I know that. And I know
Right.
that.
Right.
And I'm not saying we don't ever incorporate those because there are some really fun ways to incorporate some of those things. And some of those drills are really good.
Yeah. Right.
But there's a lot of stuff that is just absolute trash, but it looks really cool to these teenage kids. And they're like, let's do that, coach. And I'm like, well, let me tell you exactly why we're not going to do that today. I'm not saying we're never going to do it.
Right.
But this is our game plan for today. This is our game plan for the next 6 weeks because we usually plan 6 weeks out. And it doesn't fit into that plan.
Right. And so I agree with that 100%. And I actually use that. So I ask them if they have phones, because most of them do. There are a few that don't still. What do they see on social media today? Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Anything interesting? You know, when a 12th grader wants to, or back squat, 135 pounds. When can I do that? Okay, well, to your point, it's the same thing. Developmentally, we are not there yet. We have a long ways to go. Um, in strength and conditioning, we use training age. And so, what age are you training? How long have you been in the weight room? And um, from a internal development standpoint, that's an actual real thing. Muscles develop differently. Muscles for growing kids are different than kids that are not growing. I mean, there's a lot of different variables that go on into development internally as well as externally, and where they're at is going to depend on where they're going to go, right? How fast they're going to get there. And so, to your point, when they see a cool thing, on their phone, what's it going to take to get there? Or, and I know you've gone through this too, we're never going to do that. I mean, it's just plain and simple. We're never going to do that. One day, maybe when you're 25 or 26 or 27 years old, and I hope we're friends by then. I can teach you how to do that because maybe you're done playing sports. But from an athletic development standpoint, we're never going to do that. We have a long-term athletic development, and it's LTAD, and it's what does every step of the way look like to your goal of, what your ultimate goal is going to be? And I can pretty much verbally give that plan out to a lot of kids and a lot of different starting points, and it's pretty easy to do that, after 25 plus years. But it is a very real thing. I mean, just like in baseball, we're not going to go to a 100-mile-an-hour pitching machine, right away. We're going to have to start pretty slow and work our way up. And that's one of the talking points of, skill development in anything. There's every part of how you go about life, there's a skill that's being developed, right? And it's not different with baseball or even or in the weight room. And that is one of the talking points that I use with the clients, especially the younger ones, is you've never done this before. So you have to start from the beginning and we have to develop your skill. And on that basic skill will always be your foundation for as heavy as you go moving forward, so that when you get to college or when you get to the high school weight room, you're ready and there's not a confidence issue at all because you've done it 100+ times.
I love that. I love that. And this kind of brings me, I think a great place to kind of finish out this conversation is with access to information so quick for these kids. The biggest thing that we're constantly talking about and developing and focusing is how do we ingrain in them this sort of patience that comes with this kind of training, right? Because when you're talking about strength and conditioning, as far as I know, and maybe you know something I don't, it takes time to build muscle and cardiovascular and
Sure.
speed and
Sure.
all of those things. I've never seen anything that says, hey, take this pill and tomorrow you're going to have this.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what a lot of these kids sort of their perception of these TikTokers and these Instagram, and it's mostly TikTok that I see these days. But what is your take on all of that? Like, how do you get these kids to stay patient with the process?
Well, it all starts with the parents. I've always thought that. I've always felt that. My parent maturation process was was a long process, and my youngest daughter, who's in college now, playing collegiate sports, you know, there was a time when we were training, and she thought she wanted to go to the next level, and um, she stopped me and she told me, "I don't want you to train me as my dad. I want you to train me as my coach." And I know that doesn't sound like very much, but man, that just hit me in the face about everything that I had done previous to that, even with my older daughter, because I was trying so much to be their dad that I was forgetting that I had all this knowledge about being a coach. And I was not applying it. Um, but what I'm sure that was a quick story, but it starts with the parents. And there's a good study that just came out, huge study, like 34,000 participants, about the long, the kid that develops later, the late bloomer. And I think as a society, we've lost that vision of late blooming. And we want our kids to be number one as a 12-year-old. And if the parents would just read and educate themselves more and more, I believe that they would understand more that, look, take your time. And the parent reinforces what you as the coach is teaching in different ways at home. Patience, learning the process, part of the process. But if the parents are aware also of that part, um, they can slow the process down too, because the late bloomer is the better performer. Like, I think the study said over 90% of the time. So that's a big number. Um, and it's, a 34,000 participant study is huge. It kind of closes the case on that sort of theory, because we have been so stuck on getting our kids out there at 5. I've seen it at 5 years old, taking a bucket of balls. We don't need to do that, man. We just don't. Um, I tell parents all the time, like, if your kid knows at 15 or 16 that they want to play Division One or, collegiate sport, that's pretty good. But before that, really, just let them have fun. I mean, you're going to ruin the sport for them. And I see that so much, especially around in where I'm at. Um, let them just take their time developing, and that's how strength and conditioning works. If you do it right, that's how baseball works. You know this skill development, basic skill development over and over and over again is long term, right? You see the results from that in 2, 3 years. You see it immediately, of course, for the kids, but you see the results of that way in the future. And that's how strength and conditioning works. That's how most anything works, in my opinion. Um, but let the kids develop at their own speed. There's outliers, man. I saw Bryce Harper grow up. I did, and because I spent a long time in Las Vegas. Everybody knew he was going to the league when he was in the seventh grade. I mean, it was that obvious. But that is like a 1 in a million shot. Kids today are not like that. There's gonna be one every now and then, but most parents don't. Your kid's not gonna be Bryce Harper. They're just not. It's just that that's not in the cards. Let them slow cook. Let them take their time. Nothing should be a rush. And you'll be rewarded for that in the long run. I can almost promise you, I see it all the time with my athletes, with my clients. Um, and that's all I can say as far as that is the parents just really need to do a better job of being educated on the process.
I love that. I love that. And I want to go circle back just a little bit before we end our conversation today. One of the things that I tell the kids is a quick fix usually means, a short-term fix. Like
Mhm.
if you fix this real quick by doing this, yes, it may work in this moment, but is it the best for you long term? Not usually.
No,
Not usually.
no.
And the thing that I love that you brought up earlier, and I want to make sure I'm saying this right, is long-term athletic development,
Yes.
right? Talk to
Mhm.
me more about that because I think that's what these parents need to know and these coaches. It's not about a quick fix or something short term. It's a plan, it's a process, it's a development. And I love how you say allow them to develop at their speed because
Correct.
every kid is different.
Correct. So long-term athletic development is it's motor development. So it's something you learn in college when you go through that. And you know, there are certain biomechanics about and certain things that, certain I don't want to get technical at all, but there are certain ways that kids can move that help them to do things better, move more efficiently, right? Um, on the field, at home, how you bend, how you run, and they can always improve on those things because think about this. When they grow, right? Think about the kid that grows 6 inches over the summer. You've changed so many biomechanics with those bones and those joints and everything, right? That kid's not going to move the same from May to September. He's going to move totally different in September. Maybe he sucks. I mean, that's a bad word, but maybe he's not that good in September. Does it mean he's not any good anymore? No. It just means he has to adjust to his new body, And that growing doesn't change. Some kids, I grew 2 inches when I was 19. Some kids, it doesn't stop for a while. Um, those are the things that are always changing, and parents want their kids to be number one, and I totally get that. I did too, but number one, when? And I guess that's the most important question. When do you want them to be number one? At 12 years old, does it really matter? If they won Cooperstown, does that matter? Are you going to write that on your plaque when when you apply for college, or the Clemson coach is coming out to see you? I won Cooperstown. He's not going to care, you know. No pro scout is going to care. That's probably the pinnacle, right? Of 12-year-olds is Cooperstown, right? And so that doesn't matter. Long-term development is the long term is moving efficiently, getting stronger a little bit at a time, maybe enjoying more than one sport, and there there's a lot of educational, bullet points that go into that, but that is the big overview of what that means. And if you ask somebody who's in charge of training your kid and they don't know what long-term athletic development is, man, I don't know. That would be a hard one for me to continue with.
Yeah, especially for the long term, right?
Absolutely. And, I think one of the things that gets lost today is, sure, I'm training your kid for a sport, but man, I'm giving them so much knowledge, they're never going to forget it. And so when they're done playing, they can always fall back on just working out and taking care of themselves, living a healthy life. Um, yeah, so that's also a part of it, is that part of that long-term development. It doesn't have to be being a pro or winning a Super Bowl. It can just be being healthy and taking care of yourself.
That's so amazing. It's like you read my notes here. I think the thing I wanted to move into next was that really because everything we coach on the field and in my book, Coaching the Home Team, and the new book I'm coming out with, The Psychology of Hitting, it's all about what how you do anything is how you do everything, right?
Sure, sure.
If we're improving you in the weight room, if we're improving you on the field, if we're improving you anywhere we get to lead and guide you, you're going to naturally improve in those other areas.
Sure.
And longevity and fitness and obesity, those are huge words and big problems that our society are trying to solve. And this long-term athletic development, it's not just about being a healthy and fit athlete. Eventually, you might be a dad. Eventually,
Sure.
you might be a mom.
Absolutely.
And I will tell you, when I hurt my back and couldn't play with my kids, but they were there and they wanted to play and all that, I mean, I
Right.
would go through so much pain to continue to participate with them.
Right.
But if you go through this and you continue on your life and you've been trained how to take care of your body, how to prevent injury, how to properly work out, right? The things that I imagine you're teaching your athletes, that, like you said, it stays with you forever.
Right, right. And I have 27-year-olds. I use that number because that's my oldest client that we still text. And he asks me, what do you think about, the new peptide or, whatever else, what he sees on TikTok or Instagram, and we have conversations still. And I like being that person for him. I went to his wedding, which is bizarre, but that happened too. So if I can have that impact on him long term, I started him when he was when he was 12 years old, when he was in middle school. Um, if I can have that type of effect, in that manner, I mean, that's more important to me than anything else, really. Um, you know, there was a coach a while back, about 15 years ago, and you know, he was saying, look, we would all work for free if we could, right? I mean, that's where I'm at. I would love to work for free. I would love to hit the lotto and just donate my time 100%. I would love to have a baseball club, maybe coach baseball, and everybody could play for free, right? Um, but unfortunately, we don't live in that world. Um, and I believe that I can make the biggest impact long term in this arena, we're in strength and conditioning, because, after baseball, after the sport is over, being a dad, being available doesn't change. Being available to be on the field it's more important to be available as a dad. And when you're hurt, you're not available, right? And so that's what's most important, is being available for your family. So taking care of yourself, health span, like, all the long term, it never stops. It never stops.
I love that. And it allows you to do more things. I have some of my family are obese and they don't take very good care of themselves. And when we go to do activities like going to the beach or going on hikes in the mountains or going skiing or snowboarding or whatever, they're the ones that are always like, well, I can't make it or this or that because physically they can't make it. And you don't think of that as a 12-year-old kid, but when you've been training for with Coach Barry for 6 years and all of a sudden the rest of your life has now got that foundation. I mean,
Correct.
that's pretty incredible. I mean,
Correct.
one of the greatest stories I love to tell, and he was one of those kids that grew suddenly. Like, I don't know, Vatzel grew maybe it was 6 inches, maybe it was 4 inches, but he all of a sudden didn't know where his hands and feet were.
No.
He was really goofy, and his parents were gonna,
Sure.
yeah, his parents were gonna pull him out of baseball. And I was like, no, this kid wants this so bad. Just allow me to work with him, teach him where his body is and all that. And he ended up pitching 4 years at a D2 college. He went from being failing out of school to being a straight A student by the time he graduated high school. And I met with him 2 years ago for coffee. He called me up and said, "Hey, coach, you remember me?" I said, "Yeah, of course I remember you, Vatzel. What's up, brother?" And we had coffee, and he's running 8 Cinnabons, which I know we probably on this call are like, what? But he owns 8 Cinnabons, and he's just absolutely crushing it. And one of the things was he said, "What you taught me, the most important thing you taught me was to believe in myself and not to quit." And I use that and have used that in everything I've done since I played. And he only played for me for 2 years before he went to high
Yeah.
school and started playing ball in high school. And it's like those stories and the wedding invites and the baby
Yeah. Oh yeah.
showers and all
Yeah.
this stuff. And it's it's just it makes everything you did, because sometimes we come home and we're like, man, did I make a difference today? And then you get that call or you have that coffee and you're like, yeah, I did. I
Yeah,
did.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm not trying to make a difference every day, but um I like, it's just a feeling. Every kid is different. Every kid has their own path. Um and who knows what the future holds for either of us, really, in our client coach relationship. But if we can have a conversation, when they're done and they're adults and we can still talk like that, I don't care if they go pro. You know what I mean? I don't, sure, it's an amazing, success, an amazing goal to have, but man, I just want to have a conversation when they're 20, and when they're grown up, when they're grown-ups, right? And the best part about those conversations, because I've been lucky enough to have some, is, you know, I've learned so much and I remember it. And I'm like, oh, see, that's the coolest part is I remember that, that, and that. And in the moment, you don't think about the 12-year-old remembering, how to bend over. But boy, like when they're 26, 27 years old and they tell you, I remember when you taught me how to bend over because that's what I'm teaching my kid now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's stupid. Like that's just incredible. It's just, that's, I don't care about goal, I don't care about championships or anything like that. That's the most important part to me. And I got on a plane when I went to his wedding, I got on a plane and like drove 3 hours and everyone was like, how did you, it's so incredible you made it. I'm like, I wouldn't, this is my first client wedding. Like I would miss this for the world. You know what I mean? It was so cool. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's what it boils down to, is just, man, let's just have a conversation. I love that.
absolutely. Much like what we're doing today.
Absolutely. Yes.
This has been awesome. I want to wrap it up here, but I want to allow you to. So this will be on our podcast. You can find it on Spotify or wherever you find your podcasts and listen to those. It's going to be in our community. If you would like to share maybe your website, your information, you're welcome to do that. If you want to
Sure.
just do that inside the community, you can do that as well. But
Sure.
I'll give you that opportunity to share whatever you want. How do people get a hold of you? If you have any books or any of that stuff, just share whatever you want to share at this point.
Sure. Book writing is not my thing. Um, I'll just put my phone number in the notes or in part of the group. And if anybody wants to reach out, I love giving information. That's what I tell my clients all the time. Ask me why, Um, I think we're in baseball especially, but I think we're at a really crucial point in child development and child sport where I don't know. I don't see it going in a positive direction right now. And so I think it's really crucial for parents. Man, parents have to get involved. Parents, parents, parents. They just have to get involved. And I'd love to share my experiences. It's basically my opinion on that. And how I deal with that now, because as a young coach, I can't even imagine the situations that you go through, especially in club sport, dealing with parents, because it just looks really, really scary. And I giving them tools to help navigate that. And I know that's what we do here, as part of Pack Baseball and the academy is do that. But as many tools as they can get, as many different ideas, approaches, will help immensely because I just don't think it's out there, and not enough people ask questions. So that's what I hope to accomplish from this most more than anything.
I love that. I love that. So we'll go ahead and we'll get that information out. And if you're in the Milton, Georgia area
Mhm.
and you're looking for a strength and conditioning coach, how do they get a hold of you, Matt?
Sure. You can just, you just call me, man. I mean, I put out my phone number, but I'm not hiding anything. It's 702-524-0281. If you're from Georgia, you know that that's not a Georgia area code. That's my Las Vegas area code.
Yeah,
So
it is.
I spent 18 years in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas was very good to me. But yeah, just call me, man. Just give me a message, text me, call me, and I'd be happy to help out.
All right. Well, we want to thank you for your time, Coach. We appreciate it. And this has been fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you.